You're watching The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the God. We are The Breakfast Club. We got a special guest in the building.
Yes, sir.
What was that noise?
That was my early morning air horn.
Oh, I didn't know what that was. I was doing no theme music. I said, oh, man. Lin-Manuel Miranda,
Yes,
welcome.
salute my guy.
Good morning.
Hey, congrats on your first top 40 hit. Almost like praying.
Thank you, sir.
I could only understand 3 words in the song, but congrats.
He tried to listen to it earlier, right? And I'm looking at him like he don't know.
He didn't know what I was playing.
Welcome to the post-Despacito landscape, my friend.
What does that title mean? Almost like praying.
It's actually a sample from West Side Story. There's a song called Maria in West Side Story, and he says, "Say it loud and there's music playing. Say it soft and it's almost like praying." So I flipped the sample because everyone sends thoughts and prayers in the wake of a tragedy, but prayers aren't enough. We need food, we need supplies, we need water. Yeah, we need aid. And so that was the reasoning behind flipping that particular. Also, it's Hurricane Maria, so I wanted to flip the meaning of that. And then the lyrics, you don't have to speak Spanish to understand them. They are the names of the 78 towns in Puerto Rico. When a Puerto Rican meets another Puerto Rican, they say, "Where are you from?" And they don't mean Puerto Rico. They mean, "What town are you from? What town are your parents from?" And like in the wake of the hurricane, there was just a few terrible days and weeks of silence where my Facebook, my Twitter was just this roll call. Has anyone heard from Isabela? Has anyone heard from Lares? And so I wanted to write a lyric that incorporated every town so they don't feel forgotten. I want people to hear this song and be like, "Yo, J-Lo sang my town," or "Mark Anthony sang my town." And
Fat
so that
Joe's
was
on there. I think I
Fat Joe is on there.
That's the only voice you knew her.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
So did you always know that you were going to do theater?
Yeah.
And write and compose and act. You always, like, from a young age?
Absolutely. I grew up on 200th Street off Dykeman.
I'm saying, how does a guy from Washington Heights get those visions to do theater?
Yeah, well, my parents are from that age that they had the cast albums in between Willie Colon and Gran Combo growing up. So it was a lot of Latin music in my house. It was a lot of cast albums like Man of La Mancha and Camelot. And then also I'm like a little younger than hip-hop. So, my sister took me to Beat Street when I was a little kid, and I remember going to see Disorderlies because the Fat Boys got... So, there was just never a time when hip-hop wasn't a part of my life. I was a little too young for Crush Groove in the theater. I saw it later when it was, when it was on TV all the time.
Now, let me smell your neck.
What?
No, because I went on your Twitter this morning.
Wow.
Okay. You said, but I saw you say you sprayed your wife's. You said that's dope. I saw you say you sprayed your wife's deodorant on your neck.
I did. I made the mistake of getting dressed before coffee. I'm not used to this early morning DJ life.
Take a picture of that right there. You into his neck, and it looked like you.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. So I instead of grabbing the polo, I grabbed my wife's deodorant, and so I smell like my wife's armpit all morning. It's kind of distracting.
Which one do you use? If you use Dove Vanilla. You're not
supposed to be using Dove at all.
No, I know.
No, it works.
I know.
It definitely works.
This was before that commercial.
Before the commercial, okay.
Yeah,
you're right.
Yeah,
you can't throw out everything.
Those cans take a long time to wear out.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. I woke up really early, and so now I smell like my wife. Hip hop, y'all.
So what about going to see plays? Did you go see plays a lot when you were younger?
No, I was like most kids. Broadway's expensive.
Or even just not even on Broadway, because there's other plays.
Yeah, no. The way I got into it was the way I think a lot of kids got into it was I got cast in the school play, and I was in West Side. In 6th grade, I got cast in Bye Bye Birdie. And Bye Bye Birdie, I played Conrad Birdie, who's like the Elvis of the show, and I was 12 years old and 3 feet tall, and my nose grew way ahead of the rest of my face. I looked like Toucan Sam. But suddenly I was playing this part where all the women had to faint when I sang. And I thought, why would anyone do anything else for a living except for this? And it was like a ton of attention, and I got to sing, and I feel like I'm still chasing that first applause from Bye Bye Birdie when I was 12.
I've always liked theater. My first play I ever did was Rock Soup. Remember that?
Stone Soup?
Stone Soup.
Yes. Stone Soup. Mix up a pot. There's an Ace
That
on
was later
table.
on in life. I did Stone Soup in elementary school.
No.
But
Yeah, the dude comes to town, and everyone puts everything in the pot, and they all get fed. And,
yes. But the reason I always like theater is because you're so in the moment. Like there's no room for error.
Absolutely.
You either nail it then or you don't get it.
That's right. That's right. No, and that was sort of the amazing thing when I was in Hamilton was it was like a roll call of my favorite MCs coming to the show. I remember Busta Rhymes sat in the front row. And I'm not going to lie, y'all, he was a little groggy at the beginning. He took a red eye, and I saw his eyes closing at the beginning. I go,
like,
yo,
yeah.
if Busta Rhymes falls asleep in my show, I'm just closing the show.
Right.
I'm just like, that's it. I'm over. I'll go into woodworking or something else. But then he was up and he was with it for the rest of the time. And then I remember Eminem sitting in the balcony, just seeing like.
That didn't scare you?
Yeah, I rapped for my life that night. But the first thing he asked me when he came off stage was, "What happens when you mess up?" And I said, "I messed up 3 times for you today."
Going,
So
yeah.
you just keep going, and that's the fun of live theater.
They tell you ahead of time who's going to be there, so you know.
I like to know. Some people don't like to know. Like Pippa Sue, who played my wife, I would tell her as we finished bowing, like,
She doesn't want to know.
I'd be like, "Do you feel like you did a good show?" And she'd be like, "Yeah, why?" I'd be like, "'Cause Barbara Streisand and the president are here," or whoever was there that day. But I would tell her after. But I like knowing. It puts a little pep in my step.
Yeah, the night I was there, it was some like crazy dignitaries there, and they wouldn't let nobody else leave until they got them out of the building.
Yeah, it was like that
weird.
a lot. It was
Yeah.
it was really crazy.
I didn't realize how hard Hamilton tickets was to get.
Oh my God. They
Because
were
somebody
like,
gave them to me, so me and my wife
Impossible.
went, and then when I posted them on Instagram, they was like, "This how I know you getting money."
I had to.
No, they're very expensive.
They were like, you
Boy,
got to
hard
get them
get.
like months in advance in order to even be able to.
Yeah, but for me
Crespo
it was
was all over that. Shout out to Crespo.
yeah, indeed. For me, it was important that the show is such a love letter to hip hop. So it was important for me to get all my heroes, get all of those people who were gonna get the Biggie references and I'm gonna get the Mobb Deep references. Right. That's there's as many hip hop references as there are musical theater references. Because I basically lied to myself for a few years. I just pretended I was writing an album because I didn't want to worry about everyone getting everything the first time. I still go back to Reasonable Doubt. I still go back to Capital Punishment. I still go back to Bizarre Ride and hear things I never heard before. And I wanted to build a Broadway score that had the feel of one of those albums, one of those hip hop albums you go
How do
back
you
to.
get more arts in the schools though? Because it seems like we go away from that type of art.
Yeah, I mean that's a huge priority. I had the luxury of a public school education where art and music was next to math and science. That saved my life in a very real way. We know that music is the silver bullet when it comes to math and science scores and English. It connects both hemispheres of the brain. You have to be good at math to be able to spit. You have to, it's so important to what we do. So
You used to have to be good at math to be able to spit. You don't have to be good at math now.
Well, now you have to be good at triplets because everyone is spitting in triplets right now. Everything is
Yeah.
So that's the cadence of the week. Absolutely. I mean, and then when I was growing up in the '90s, everything was spit mathematics, and it was
you had to be smart.
You had to be smart in science, and that'll come back around. Everything is cyclical, I hope.
Like when I heard Keith Murray, I had to grab a dictionary and a thesaurus. Like seriously, when he spit on Hostile, and he was like, "It's 96." He said, "Your medulla, cerebrum, and cerebellum. You got a crew. You better tell him." I'm like, what the fuck is he talking about?
Hell yeah. Abomatomically, Socrates' philosophies.
High prophecies can't define how I've been dropping these.
Yeah, man.
All right, now let me ask you this. Being that Hamilton brought a lot of different people in politics from different sides of things, all different types of people that maybe in real life don't really interact or get along with each other. Was it ever awkward for you to have to maybe meet with somebody after the show who you might not agree with or just maybe dislike? Was it weird that, because obviously it's great that it brings people together.
Yeah.
But sometimes there's people that you're like, I don't really like that person.
No, it's yeah. I mean that comes with it. What was crazy about Hamilton was like we'd do the show for 3 hours. We're rapping and singing and dancing. Then you have like another half hour of just like saying hi to folks who can come backstage, and then another half hour of the stage door and signing programs and all that. For me it was. I never tried to play gotcha in those moments after the show. We've all been through something together. Like they've all watched the show. And that was actually kind of amazing. I could talk to the Bush daughters about, I would just keep it on some like, what is it like to know your dad is being judged by history like all the time? Like presidents and leaders of state, they get graded on a way harsher, deeper curve than we do.
As they should.
As they should, absolutely. They're playing, they with a stroke of their pen, they change people's lives. They can save them. They can damage them.
That's why I understand why Donald Trump's curve is so low.
Well,
like
but history will judge, and God will judge, and that's, it's interesting. I always ask leaders about that. Like when I got to speak to President Obama, I asked him, what does that feel like to know that you're going to be in history books? And he said it's actually freeing. For him, it was freeing because he knew I might get bad press today, but my eye is not on that. My eye is on the decision that will have ramifications for the future. And we're seeing that with Obamacare. We're seeing how hard it is to undo a legacy, and rightfully so. That he put things in place that hopefully will benefit people for the future. And, we have a lyric in the show, history has its eyes on you, and that swings both good and bad. When people see people suffering in Puerto Rico and Trump's throwing paper towels, history was going to judge that. Right. That's going to be remembered forever. It's I wouldn't wish it on anyone. I will never run for political office, but they have great responsibility.
But you don't have to though, because history's watching you as well. History's watching all of us.
You'll be in the history books as well.
Those are things that I think about. I think about like, when it comes to radio, I think about all the different radio personalities that we still discuss now.
Absolutely.
And I want to be discussed like that in the future.
Remember Rappin' Duke,
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they're judging you the same way, I think.
Yeah.
Did Hamilton make people go back and watch In the Heights now?
I hope so. Yeah, it's been amazing. What happened was there was sort of an explosion of school productions at the show, and that's been amazing to see. And it's double-edged for me, right? So they're like schools with like Black and Latino kids who get to do the show, and it feels like it's their show. Like, this is my neighborhood. There's English and Spanish. There's hip hop. And then there are productions that are like in all white school districts where suddenly these like little white kids are waving Dominican flags and Puerto Rican flags and have to learn Spanish to do the show. And I like that too. Right. Like, I like that the culture stretches in this unexpected way and makes inroads. That was a show. I started writing that show when I was 19 years old. We got to Broadway when I was 28. So it was a lot of work, and it was a lot.
9 years later.
Yeah.
So you wrote that while you were at Wesleyan.
I wrote the first draft at Wesleyan, put it up. It was an 80-minute one act at the 92 Theater, which you know well. Go West.
We went to the same college.
Yeah.
But he went after me. Yeah,
and so it was. It was really, and it wasn't for a school project. It wasn't my thesis. It was just something I really needed to write. It was. It's interesting. That was 1999, 2000. It was right when that first Latin pop boom was happening, and suddenly the people that I had listened to all my life, like the rest of the country was listening to, because they were singing in English, like Mark Anthony and Ricky Martin, Enrique Iglesias.
Pitbull.
Pun was happening.
Pitbull's Cuban, my bad.
Yeah, Pitbull, Mr. Worldwide, hell yeah. But like Pun was sort of at his peak, and he was, and so it was just an amazing time. And
Jennifer Lopez at that time.
Jennifer Lopez, don't be fooled by the rocks that she got. And what was amazing was sort of seeing the rest of the world embrace what I'd always grown up but had listened to at home. And so it was also my attempt to like bring the culture I'd grown up with into my writing for the first time.
How did you know it was time to walk away from Hamilton though?
Oh, I always knew I have like a warranty after a year. My voice will give out, my back will give out. So
Really?
I gave myself a year to do it. And really proud of that year and that original cast. But I just knew that I want to write the next thing. I had the idea for Hamilton on my first vacation from Heights. So what that teaches me is the good ideas don't come when you got 50 things to do. The good ideas come when you're like walking your dog or like you actually get a breath and you get a second to daydream. So I knew I would need that if I was going to write the next one.
Why Hamilton though? Like why this old white guy?
Why Hamilton? Well, because that's always how I thought of him. I just knew he was the dude on the 10. And I knew I wrote a paper on him in high school, and I knew that his son died in a duel, and he died in a duel 3 years later. And I thought, how does that happen? Like, let history be your guide. Don't go to that duel. You see what happens. And so that's all I knew when I was looking for a book to read on vacation, and I saw Ron Chernow's book, and it had good reviews. I didn't know he was born in the Caribbean. He was born in Nevis and grew up in St. Croix. I didn't know he was about his home life, and his childhood is so traumatic. And he literally, talk about full circle. There was a hurricane that destroyed St. Croix, and he wrote about how bad it was. and they used it for relief efforts. And people took up a collection to get him off the island. They go, this guy's not going to get an education on this island. Let's send him to the mainland to become a doctor so he can come back. And I thought, that's the most hip hop thing. I mean, to me, that's hip hop. It's about writing about your struggle and your circumstances so well and so specifically that it becomes universal, that we can see ourselves in Biggie's Juicy, that we can see ourselves in Eminem's Lose Yourself, that, you know, the hip hop writers that I really love write about their struggle so well that they transcend it. And then I had that idea, and that's the second chapter of the book. And it just kept proving me right. Like, everywhere he got was because of his strength as a writer. And to me, that's what my favorite MCs do. And that's both good and bad. He also wrote about his first affair and destroyed his political career because he thought, if I explain it, people will forgive me. And they did not.
I mean, it wasn't 444.
It wasn't 444. But it's proto 444. I mean, it's expressing remorse, but it's also sort of full out, here's what I did. I was never corrupt with government funds. I was just bad as a man and a husband and father, and blew up his own spot. I mean, he really did it. You know, and it's but to me, that's also hip hop, to like take it and just throw it all out there. You know, 100 bars, no chorus. Yes. And that's what the Reynolds pamphlet is. It's 100 bars, no chorus. And so that was, once I had that idea, it sort of didn't let go of me.
The beauty of hip hop is, and I realized this after I watched Hamilton, but it was something I already knew. Nothing can translate a story better than rhyming. Yeah. No, I don't think no other genre of music could do that. It's something about a rhyme that connects with everybody. It's the same reason Johnny Cochran got OJ off.
If the glove doesn't fit.
To quit.
Yeah, no, it's and we also have to remember, this thing of plays not rhyming is actually the new thing. Like most, like if you go into your history, if you go into Homeric verse, if you go into Shakespeare, for many years, drama and theater meant rhyming. And so this is just sort of bringing it back to that. Naturalism is the innovation. Naturalism is sort of the relatively new thing. You know, we wrote odes and poems, and that's part of our history. So hip hop is reconnecting us to actually a much older tradition.
Now, what's next for you after coming off of a huge success like Hamilton? I'm sure everybody's beating down your door to work with you and do different things. So what's your next passion project? Yeah,
I mean, for me, honestly, my next passion project is getting the lights on in Puerto Rico. And I don't really have another thing besides that. Everything else is on hold. Right. It's raising awareness. It's raising money. The initial slowness of the government's response meant that we're working at a deficit and we're working as fast as we can. And so, you know, this single is something that, almost like praying. I wrote that because I was waiting for word from my family and I needed something to do in addition to tweeting, in addition to raising money.
Oh, so that's where the title comes from, like therapeutic almost.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's the full-time gig. I mean, Hamilton is opening in London, and there's now 3 productions in the States, and those are all going great. But personally, like my time's on Puerto Rico until there's a sense of normalcy there.
So safe to say, the song that you made. Now, was there anybody that you wanted on the song that you couldn't get? It wasn't enough time, or
anybody you found out wasn't really Puerto Rican?
No, you know what was amazing was, you know, even the people I reached out to who couldn't do it, it's because they were already working so hard for Puerto Rico. So Daddy Yankee said whatever you want, but Daddy Yankee was literally flying relief planes to the island, so I couldn't get him on the weekend I was recording. But hopefully there's time for a remix with him. You know, Ricky Martin again reached out to him, but he was flying supplies to and from the island. So, you know, everyone has been so amazing and supportive. And these artists were incredible. I mean, you know, I flew to LA, I flew to Miami. This all happened within a week of writing the tune. And everyone just moved mountains to get in a studio and make this happen. It's 21 artists, 22 including me. You know, Fat Joe was also, you know, has been flying stuff to and from the island. The mobilization of our people has been really incredible. So I was grateful they made the time to get in the studio to spit 4 bars or 8 bars or whatever we needed.
So it's safe to say you haven't been pleased with the American government's response to Puerto Rico?
No, but I've been pleased with the response of the American people. That's been the kind of incredible thing. You know, you go to my Twitter feed, you will see kids doing toy drives and breaking their piggy banks. You will see, you know, companies stepping up in a big way.
People taking their own initiatives when the government's not doing what they're supposed to to do.
Absolutely. You know, I just before I got here, I was talking to Chef Jose Andres. Go watch his Twitter feed. He's got 75 chefs. He's gone to every town faster than the government has. And he's been feeding people. He's feeding thousands and thousands of people with chefs, just making meals happen as quickly and cheaply as possible all over the island.
People make time for what they want to make time for.
Absolutely.
And I mean, when you see the American people responding faster than the government, that lets you know maybe the government just doesn't have time. They don't care enough.
And what's frustrating, of course, is, you know, of course we send aid to Texas, those are our brothers and sisters. Of course we send aid to Florida, those are our brothers and sisters. The challenges are even greater in Puerto Rico because it's an island and you can't just drive stuff down. But that means we need to be more prepared. That means we need to send more troops. It means, you know, when their infrastructure is so delicate, even before the storm, it means they need more help. Right. So it's been frustrating not to get that.
Is it possible for you to create art without a message in it?
Absolutely. Well, there's two answers to that question. One, I think you need to create what inspires you. I think your time is wasted if you're lecturing a writer. You need to write about whatever, this or that or the other. You can only write what inspires you. I had to write about Hamilton because Hamilton wouldn't leave me alone. He was showing up in the shower while I was walking my dog. You know, it was.
You weren't scared that this old white man kept popping
I mean,
up
I
on
was like, man, can I have a minute? You know, but it was the inspiration's got to lead. But the other half of that is, I think human stories are inherently political. You can't divorce. The way we're living from the times we're living in. So, you know, it's going to speak to that because, you know, we speak to that. In the Heights, when I wrote the first draft, there was nothing about gentrification. I moved back home after living at Wesleyan and there was a Starbucks on 181st Street.
Yeah, amazing.
So suddenly it became very different. Like it became
different.
the people who make this place special are suddenly not able to afford to live here anymore. And so that sort of infused itself into the show because that was the reality of my characters. You know, the characters don't live in a vacuum. And
now,
so,
being in show business, are you surprised with all this Harvey Weinstein, people coming forward, women saying that everybody gets Weinstein in the business at some point. Every woman has somebody try her, and so many people are coming forward and telling their stories. Had you heard a lot of stories about women saying that they were?
I hadn't. I'm a relative newbie to Hollywood. Harvey was never going to win any nice guy competitions. I'd heard legendary stories of him screaming at assistants and just screaming at people and just generally being a terror. I had never heard any of the other stuff, and it's horrific. It's really horrific. I'm glad it's coming forward. I'm glad it's sort of creating this ripple effect of this is unacceptable. This is unacceptable to use your power in this way.
But you're not glad that the Weinstein Company owns the rights to In the Heights?
No, and we're trying to sort of make that happen in as quickly as possible. You know, Kiara, who is my co-writer on In the Heights, has been writing this amazing screenplay, and so we're trying to find the best way to make that happen somewhere else.
But even if they get rid of Harvey, like if they get rid of Harvey and they change the name and Harvey sells his shares in the company, you wouldn't stay with them?
Well, I mean, this happened for many years. This happened, and this doesn't happen alone. I mean, the stories we're hearing that are so terrifying because, you know, you try to be safe and you try to be smart, and yet you're hearing stories of people going into a room and then suddenly the room empties out and you're alone with him. That's the most horrific, nightmarish thing I can imagine. So there is, there's just this. I don't know. There is you want to be divorced from the entire process and the entire culture that allowed that to.
Right. I would think those extenuating circumstances they should let you.
Well, it's weird though because you kind of find
screenplay back.
It seems like that's just a Hollywood way. Like you hear Terry Crews talking about executives, so it's like. Anywhere you go was like
Terry
the
Crews story was incredible.
That's what I'm saying. Anywhere you go seems like the lesser of two evils.
I read a tweet that was so amazing. Imagine the level of privilege to grab Terry Crews and know you're gonna get away with it.
Yeah, Terry Crews.
Crazy.
Like you start off with the 6'6", 250-pound black guy.
I mean,
you don't even start
like
off with somebody
the platonic ideal of a man.
Yes,
and,
exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Like that dude is carved from marble. That dude is so smart and he's so incredible and so like such a leader, and to disrespect him like that and know you're going to get away with it. I can't begin to wrap my head around that level of privilege.
And that's like all those people saying, why didn't those women say something before? Terry Crews didn't say anything before. That's how intimidating it is for people to feel like, well, am I going to get more work in this business? Will people believe me? People who did speak up, people didn't believe them, or just said, oh, that's just what it is.
Yeah.
And brushed it under the rug. So
and it was brave of him to tell that story, and it's great that people are making noise and making their stories heard.
I love how you repping this morning, too. You got a Big Pun hoodie on and a Washington Heights hat. Like, you are rapping.
I'm trying.
Hard.
I'm trying.
You might as well go do Jesus in Maryland right now. Keep it all the way Bronx.
His hat says Uptown all day, every day.
Now, can we get you to spit a little bit before you leave?
Oh, good Lord.
Why
Okay.
would you
How
do
do you
that
feel
to
about
him?
Cardi B, since that's like your area, kind of?
Oh, yeah, Cardi's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that song is amazing. I'm thrilled for her. I'm, always thrilled.
All right.
You ain't gonna spit?
Don't
Why
make
you
him
ask
do
him to
that.
rap?
Oh,
That's so
my God.
stereotypical. Like, Jesus
Why
Christ.
is it stereotypical?
Because he's always
Because he does
rapping.
do it.
You don't like to just
He
walk
just-
around rapping.
I don't.
He did it,
Exactly.
but if you were to tell him, can you check the mic and do a mic check, he probably would have just did it on his own.
I did. Well, I checked the mic with a pun verse this morning. I mean, that was
I do like what you do, though, man, because like you and Ava DuVernay kind of are similar to me, because y'all don't do art. Y'all don't do anything for no reason. Everything y'all does art-wise has a purpose to it and a bigger meaning.
Well, she's such a leader. I look to her for cues and I look to her for guides. I actually saw her this weekend. I saw her on Sunday. And
you was at the Oprah brunch
Oprah
too?
Soul Sunday.
You
Hell
bougie?
yeah, I was
That's
at
why you're trying to keep it real this morning with your Big Pun hoodie and you watching that because you was at the Super Soul brunch.
I was in LA and I was invited to a brunch and I did not say no. And I was not going to miss that.
Is it really popping out there? I heard it's popping, those brunches.
It's crazy. It was crazy. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe. Yeah, it was unreal.
Is the food good?
Yeah, it better be good. It's at the promised land at Oprah's house.
I heard you have to cut your finger and.
No, nothing like that. Nothing like that. No Masonic rituals there. No, but one of the things that Ava said that moved me so much was, she's working on Wrinkle in Time right now, and I said to the studio, I'm pulling a Hamilton with this cast, and they knew exactly what I meant. And I got to pull a Hamilton with this cast. And what she meant was diversity. We have an African-American, Meg Murray, who was not written that way in the books. But, the fact that is shorthand for allowing us to dream of screens and stages that are more colorful and richer than what we may initially have read or what was initially put forth is kind of incredible to me. I mean, that's if that is a part of the legacy of Hamilton, I'm really grateful for it.
And
it's not diverse for just the sake of being diverse. It's like actually very talented people. Like that first cast of Hamilton, all of them have gone on to do great things.
Yeah, absolutely. And in our subsequent casts of Hamilton, they will go on to do great things because there's never a shortage of talent. It's a shortage of opportunity.
It probably opened so many doors in theaters too. I'm sure now they're like, okay, we saw how great Hamilton did. We got to make sure that we.
Yeah, and it makes people aware of talent that wasn't on their radar because there wasn't a part for them before. I started writing in the Heights because, I really wanted to be an actor, and I don't dance well enough to play Bernardo. And if you want to do musicals, Bernardo's all we get if we're Puerto Rican dudes. That was it for a really long time, was West Side Story. And so I wanted to write a thing that had tons of parts for Latino men and women. And so that's really what In the Heights was. It was like, can we be real people on stage? Can we tell stories that aren't the gang member on the corner? I mean, that story was told very well by West Side Story, and it's 50 years later. So
this is my final question. How do you gauge it, though? Because there's certain stories I'm sure you want to tell where you want people to know this is Puerto Ricans or this is black people. Like, you want people to know that. But then with stories like Hamilton, you just want to get the story out. Because I forget that I'm sitting there watching a story about a bunch of old white men. And I forget that y'all are even Puerto Rican and black. It's just a good story.
Yeah, no, you let the story lead. And at the same time, for me, the fun in writing that was the fights that everything that was at the founding of the nation are the fights we're still having. We've gone so far and we've gone nowhere. So those rap battles about when are we 50 states and when are we one country are the fights we have. By the way, every time there's need for aid, we're one country when we help out someone who's been ravaged by a hurricane. We're one country when there's a crisis, when California is on fire. Those are when we're one nation. And then there's times when people want to be like, well, Why is my money going over there? Those are the fights we have as a country. The legacy of slavery, something we'll be dealing with for the rest of our lives. That is recent history, and the effects of that will be felt forever. When do we get involved with other countries? The second rap battle in the show is them fighting about the French Revolution. Take out the word France. It could be about Syria. It could be about Afghanistan. It's when do we fight for the interests of people in other countries, and when are we isolationist? So those are not going anywhere. And they're like your family fights. Like, do you have brothers or sisters?
Yes.
Yeah.
2 brothers, 2 sisters.
And are your fights with them exactly the same as when you were little, except they're just about different stuff? But the dynamic is the same. Like my sister is 6 years older than me. She actually is in charge of my money.
Mine too.
And
Same
she went to business school, so it's best that way. But still, at the end of the year, she tells me, "Okay, I'm going to tell you how much you made, but you can't spend it on comic books and gum." And I'm like, "I'm 37 years old, Sita. Can I please?" So it's like the fights are the same, and I think our country fights and our family fights, and so that's what makes that universal, because everything's changed and nothing's changed.
Now, you talked a lot about the Heights. Talked a lot about the Heights today. For people who've never been to the Heights, because there's a lot of people that don't even know what the Heights is. Yeah. They come to New York, they want to go to Heights. Where can they go to eat?
You want to go to Caridad? Caridads are like our McDonald's. There's one every few blocks.
Okay.
You can get the best mango in the morning, which is like mango with like fried egg and like fried onion on top. You don't need to eat lunch if you had mango for breakfast.
All right.
Caridad, El Malecón on 175th Street in
Sounds
Broadway.
Like a curse.
I thought Malecón was a curse word.
Malecón.
Not Maricón.
Yeah. Yes. El Malecón's got like the best chicken up there, and you can see them spinning on the spit. In the window.
Rotisserie? Okay.
Where do you go? What makes you feel at home? Like when you come back off from LA or wherever you're at, what makes you feel at home?
We order Malecón pretty often. They're also fast as hell. The delivery is unbelievable. You will hang up the phone and the dude is there with the chicken before you've hung up the phone. So I like them, and I like Caridad a lot. Those are my Dominican spots.
Final questions, I promise. Big Pun or Biggie?
It's tough. Neither of them had enough time. And that makes me sad. I think Biggie, for variety of flow storytelling, is untouchable. But for multisyllabic, my hero is Pun. It's dead in the middle of little did we know. One of my favorite verses is on it's actually on a Don Carter album, and it's on The Hidden Hand, and he goes. My tomb was cold as ice, so I know I'm shice. Big Pun was the kid that no one liked. My whole life was one big roll of the dice. Paying the price twice as expensive as white kids destined for Rikers, not knowing my existence was priceless. It's like this, my tomb was lifeless. I earned stripes, fighting the nicest in a crisis. I slice them in half, make them dash like hyphens, inviting any rapper to clash with the titan. My writing's like fighting, cause rappers be biting like Tyson. I'm hyping the crowd, getting them loud like my label. I'm proud, I'm able to live from the bowels of the ghetto. What found me a little sanity inside a career and a family. I mean, it's just so soulful. So I could quote Pun, but because I think Pun is unappreciated as a storyteller. But Biggie is who I go to all the time. I mean, if you listen to Hamilton, you're hearing at least 6 Biggie references in there, and I was grateful to the Wallace family for letting me sort of quote those and participate in that. Yeah. No, I it's interesting. I didn't have to pay for any of those samples, but I wanted to because I wanted the kid for whom Hamilton is their first show to go, oh, who is this that's on the credit contains a sample from, and then go listen to those tracks. So it was important to me to have those footnotes and bibliography and show my work so that people could then go deep dive on the artist I was drawing inspiration from.
J-Lo or Beyonce?
Don't get me in trouble on television. I love them both. Listen, J-Lo is always the first to, she's always there to step up. This is my second charity single with J-Lo. We did something for the Orlando victims last year. She's unbelievable, and she fits that in between her CBS show and her Vegas show. I literally don't know how she does it. And at the same time, I will follow any and all instructions from Beyonce at any time. I will get information, and it's like, when she does that midnight drop, you wake your wife up at 12:01. Honey, she dropped it, just like a surprise, and there's videos too. So I'm in the hive just like everybody else.
Well, final one: New Edition or Menudo?
Why are you making fights in the culture, man? Can't we be united? Puerto Rico needs our help. You trying to make me choose menudo all day, every day. Slow it down. Girl, watch out.
My goodness. All right. There you have it. Lin-Manuel Miranda, a.k.a. Mr. Menudo.
Salute to Lin-Manuel, man.
It's the Breakfast Club. Good morning.